Now, David, it's been days since many Ukrainians were cut off from electricity, heating and water, as we've just heard. Can you tell us more about how Russia explains this?
Well, Russia's response to this is fairly remarkable. They just completely deny that they have targeted infrastructure at all. They say any damage that is done is coincidental. It's missiles that have been shot down and land on these targets accidentally. But the pattern of destruction, the way in which the Russians have focused ruthlessly on destroying infrastructure doesn't bear that out. It's very clear what the intentions are. But the Russians, of course, have lied from the very start. Putin gave assurances to Macron 2 days before the invasion that he had no intention of invading. And of course, we see this pattern of denial repeated with this particular instance.
Well, Ukraine's president says the most difficult situation is in 15 regions, including the capital, Kyiv. How are authorities handling this crisis?
As your reports indicated, they're setting up centres where people can get warm and charge their phones and get a drink and a meal. He's saying that we have to survive 120 days of winter, but he's also saying that actually we can survive the winter. We couldn't survive Russian occupation. The Ukrainians have been stockpiling wood as an alternative source of energy. They've been cutting down forests in preparation for this. There is a willingness of stoicism to see this thing through, whatever that takes. People have been melting snow for water where the water supplies haven't been getting in. They're determined to whatever it takes to actually get through this, because they recognise that the alternative is worse.
Meanwhile, parts of Ukraine are still under daily bombardment?
Absolutely. The Russians are using cruise missiles and drones that they've bought from Iran that are cheap devices that can deliver an explosive yield at a low cost. And they're relentlessly trying to break the will of the Ukrainian people by trying to freeze them. They're weaponizing winter in a way that's trying to break that will. And the Ukrainians are actually responding, recognizing that what's going on here by saying that we're stronger than this and we will survive.
In another development, Russia stands to lose its biggest tech company over this war. Tell us about Yandex, often referred to as the country's Google.
Absolutely. So this is a tech innovation company that's done driverless vehicles, cloud computing, and various other new whizzy technologies. And under the sanctions regime and the authoritarian nature of Russia today, the company's saying, actually, we want to spin off the bits of this company that are viable. It's owned by a Dutch holding company, shut down the Russian operation and try and actually offshore the bits that are valuable. This is an indication of the way in which sanctions are depleting Russia of access to the world economy, making all their companies have the same pariah status as Russia itself, and therefore here we see the last and the biggest one trying to save itself by distancing itself from Vladimir Putin and his aggressive regime.
What do we know about Vladimir Putin being repeatedly snubbed at an international summit of countries meant to be Russia's friends?
This is Putin went to the collective security organization that Russia more or less dominates in Armenia, and the Armenian president made pains on 4 different occasions to actually snub Putin publicly for his lack of support. And I think actually the broader point here is that people are recognizing that Russia and Putin are weakened by this activity, and as a consequence, that they feel confident enough to actually take steps which they wouldn't dream of doing a few years previously, because he is someone who was regarded as powerful, but now they recognize that he's a weakened and enfeebled and damaged goods, fundamentally.
So where do you see this conflict headed? There seems to be no end in sight at this present moment.
Unfortunately, I think you're right. Both sides see different routes to victory. The Ukrainians are victorious in the battlefield, and the recent gains in the south means that they are confident with weapons and with resolve and the high morale of their forces that they can take back territory. Russia sees its strategy as trying to destroy the infrastructure and freeze the Ukrainians into some sort of negotiated settlement or indeed surrender. So both sides see routes to militarily achieving their objectives. So there's no prospect of any negotiations anytime soon. So what we're likely to see is months more of grueling pain on both sides and no prospect of an end to this war anytime soon.
Professor David Dunn, great to talk. Thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure.